Well, it's a sad day. My old Arctic Spa Power Genius control board here has obviously seen better days. The hot tub started working the other day, and taking this thing apart here, I can see that there's been all sorts of stuff shorting out here. So it's time to replace that. And I'm going to be doing so with the Ecco pack, which is replacing the Power Genius as of like 2011. So it's time to switch this up. Now of note here is that upon purchasing this, it only had 2 bolts in here holding this front panel on. So I'll just quickly remove those. So the front panel just pops off here. You can see everything on the inside, and here's a little bag with the other 4 bolts that we'll use to hold this on. We've got some geese flying overhead. Now, after taking some pictures here just to ensure that I remember exactly where everything was wired, just in case it gets a little bit tricky later on, I'm going to go ahead and remove the electrical wires here coming from the house. Just pull those out. And now that those are free and clear, I can go ahead and remove this actual whole wire from here and pull those out. There's just a little nut on the inside here that holds this in place, but just by unthreading it here, you can pull this whole piece out. I've gone ahead and pulled out these wires here as well. I'm just going to clean them up because there's a little bit of stuff going on here. So just using a brass brush, we'll get those nice and clean. I will also remove these little plugs here. These will be controlling the lights inside the spa. Okay, and I also want to be able to free up the probes, for the high limit switch, for the flow, for all of that. So I'm just going to see what I need to do in order to remove these. So as you can see here, for this one probe, it just sits right into there. So that'll be an easy replacement. I'm just going to tuck this back in place for now. So now that that high limit temperature probe is out of there, I'm going to take off this flow here. It seems to be giving me a little trouble trying to come off there, so I'm going to pull off the panel so I can see it from the other side. And that wire actually came off really quite easy once I could get over there and see the angle at which I needed to pull it. So I was just paranoid about breaking it. So there we are. Now I want to remove this actual panel from here altogether. There are some lag bolts holding it in place. Going to have to kind of cut away a little bit of the spray foam here, just using a chisel or a knife to get at that. So that's going to be fun. So actually removing that one lag bolt over on the other side that had the spray foam on it really wasn't a big deal. The spray foam cut away super easily. I just had to remove a little bit of it. And these other lag bolts here, you can see I'm it's an awkward angle here, but I am able to remove them using this ratchet here. Even one-handed, look at me. Okay, so we are loose here. I am going to remove this plug here, this harness that's for the control panel. It was just up in the corner there, because I'm going to obviously need that, and I don't see a wire like this that is for the Ecco pack, so I want to pop that out. I'm also going to pop out this wiring here for the lights, and then I can remove this entire unit. Of course, I'll also have to just unscrew the ground wires here that are on the right side. So I'm not super happy about this, but the regulation probe that goes to underneath the tub here is buried in some of that spray foam, so I'm going to have to sort of dig it out super carefully. I don't want to use my chisel or a knife or anything and risk messing stuff up in there, so I'm going to try and dig that out so that I can put the new one in, because the harnesses are different between the 2 control panels, so I can't just leave this one in there and hope that it works. So I went ahead and dug in here, and I actually went further than I needed to, because as it turns out, this probe just pulls out like that. There's like this rubber grommet kind of thing here that holds it in place, but it was just an easy move pulling it out. So there you are for the record. Now, of course, the original lag bolts that were holding that first panel in are too thick, so I just have some older lag bolts that are a little bit skinnier that I had kicking around the garage, and I'm just going to be putting those in now. I figured out exactly where I want to install this. Fortunately, I don't really need to kick up any more of this spray foam or scrape it out or anything like that to place this. And now, because this panel, with this panel here, you slide in from the back. So I'm going to be mounting those the two lag bolts there, so I can slide this into it, and then I will put in the two front ones and secure it like that. Now that I have this one lag bolt in place, I'm going to place the second one. Now, my little trick that I'm going to use here, because the holes line up exactly the same on the front and the back, I'm just using the front end here so I know exactly what that spacing is, just because it's super hard to get behind that panel and see. Now that I have those back lag bolts in place, let's take a look at the actual wires here that we need to install. Peel this off here. So first off, we've got this regulator probe here. So I've removed that rubber grommet from the other one. There is just like already a little slit in it. I'm just going to clean out, there's a little bit of spray foam in here. I'll clean that out and get that onto here. So it should just be able to tuck right back in to that same slot and seal up, like so. So it's time to install the high limit probe again here, so I'm just going to tuck that into there. And just like so. Make sure it's exactly in place. Perfect. And then this is nice because it just installs super easily with this wing nut here. Done. Then let us put in place the wires there, and then these will be easier to put on from this side. Oop, there we go. Just like that. Now, I would like to install the actual power here. So I'm just going to, I removed the old metal one that I had on here just because it wasn't going to quite fit nicely in there. So I'll use the one that comes with this. All right, so we've got that on there. Now, let's get this over here so we can put it through. And I'll just thread this plastic nut on. That'll allow this just to be held in place. Just like that. So wiring for this is actually quite easy. So it's all labeled right down here. So ground, line 1, neutral, and line 2. And this is just a pretty typical way to get the wiring into here. So I'm going to take my line 1. I already installed my ground. My line 1, I'm going to have to get my pliers out just to bend this. But it's going to be a matter of sticking it up through the bottom here and then tightening these screws back in, just to lock them into place. I see that this neutral slipped just a little bit, so I'm going to make sure that that wire is in there as far as we can go. Perfect. And done. Now, two last things to do here before I can close up this panel. The first one is to insert, this is still the original wiring that plugged into my old panel, and this is to control the actual top side control panel. This goes to there. Now it's just an 8-pin plug, so I'm just going to carefully line it up so as not to wreck any of these pins, and yeah, there we go. Clicks right into place. Now my other problem here is the lights. This 3-prong harness here is labeled lights. Unfortunately, my old lights plugged in using these. That will not work. So I contacted my dealer and I'm actually ordering up the proper wire for this, which I'm hoping I can just cut these off, splice the other ones on, and then just plug and play. Fortunately, with the lights, I don't really need them right now in order for the hot tub to function. Now, seeing as there's nothing else to do on the inside of this panel at this time until I have the wiring that I need for those lights, I'm going to put on the cover here just so that everything is nice and protected. So I'm going to use those 2 bolts that were originally holding this on, as well as the 4 that came in that extra bag. Next, I need to take my 2 grounding wires and actually just mount them into here, secure them for the grounding, but that's going to be impossible to video while I'm doing that. So that's where they're going to go on the back side of this here. So I have my ground wires installed. I actually had to replace this wire here with a similar gauge wire just because the old one wasn't quite long enough to reach all the way around to the side. So now it's time to plug in my heater and pump connectors here. And the nice thing about this whole setup is that they're all different and there's only one thing that they can actually fit into. So I just got to figure out which one's here. Okay, so heater is going to go on the very bottom. Gotta love the plug and play. And then pump 1. This is a single pump system. Goes in the very top. Done. Okay, now I just need to secure these with the last 2 leg bolts. All right, we are mounted. I got those in there. I just got these lighting wires, which don't have any power or anything going to them at this point. That's something I still need to fix. However, we are ready to see if this actually works. All right, we are flipping the breaker. Oh, things appear to be resetting here. We do have power. Now, I was getting a communications error, like a Spa Boy comms error code on this. And the way to fix that was I just pressed the filter button, which is that one there with the line going through it. Held it for quite a while, right past the set cycle. Then it goes into this LP cycle. And it was a matter of going and pushing that filter button until I found SB1. SB1 was the code. I had to hit the down arrow to make that SB0, and then hit that filter button, and everything then reset. Seems to be going. I've just increased the temperature degree here, which is wicked, and things should be good. So that trick, playing around with the settings here, worked perfectly. The spa is in perfect working order. The last thing to do here is get the lighting up and running. So the final issue here is just making sure that the lights are connected properly. So as I mentioned, these were the original connectors that went into my old Power Genius pack. However, the new Ecco pack requires this 3-pin connector here. Fortunately, the guys at the company where I bought this pack managed to scrounge up. This actually looks like it was a used one. They didn't charge me for it, which was the right thing to do in my opinion. But it comes with these connectors here. This is what would be probably plugging into some of the newer style of hot tubs. However, all I need to do here is just cut these wires. I'm going to do that on this side of this stress relief connector here. I'm going to thread that through afterwards, but I'm going to basically just cut these wires, and splice them together just using some of these butt splice connectors here. And then I'm just going to give myself, I'm going to probably cut back about 8 inches or so for here. I've got lots of wire, but more is probably better than not enough. So I'll just go ahead and cut these. Don't have to be too careful about that. Of course, I will mention, I once again turned off the power before I opened up the Ecco pack here. I'm just going to go ahead and trim these wires here. Get them ready to go. And I'm just going to do the same with my new wiring. Just cut all of those. Strip the wires. So now I'm just going ahead and connecting these together here. The black and white wires coming from the inside of the hot tub, they were in pairs here, so I'm just going to connect those as these ones here in the new connection are also in pairs. So I'll just do the black and white and then the black and the white. Now these butt splices were just a touch on the large side for the wires that I've got, but they are holding. But of course, as always, I am just going to use some electrical tape here and just secure everything. There we go, little homemade waterproofing and strain relief. Woo, right there. Okay, let's just repeat with the other side. All right, so now that I've got my connections all nicely done here, it is time to actually get this into the control pack. So I'm just going to come around. I'm going to go through the bottom of these two holes that's open here. Just going to tuck that in behind there. Right. So now that that's through, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to plug it in to the light pin connector, which is just down here on the bottom, and just making sure that I plug it in the correct way. So it's going to be with this little clip edge here on the bottom so that it can click in. Find my way in there, and yeah, plugged in just like so. I'm also now realizing that they neglected to give me the nut that goes on this side on that strain relief. That's okay for now. This is actually in a spot that there's nothing applying pressure to it, but I am going to make sure to hunt one of those down with them, and then that'll just thread on there and secure that better in place. But either way, this will work for now, so let's get that panel back on. So now that everything's working, the cover back on the panel. I'm going to use the term very loosely here, but I somewhat cleaned up the wiring. I just sort of tethered everything together here, so there's not a lot of slack all over the place here. It's actually cleaner than it was when before I started any of this repair job, but there we are. Time to get these cover panels back on. Oh, and the lights are working, as you can see, on off. The only downside to this was that the Ecco pack doesn't allow for dimming. The original settings on this, you could just keep hitting the button multiple times. There was like a high, medium, and low. However, this is just on or off. And I confirmed that with the dealer that that's the case with the Ecco pack, so there we are. I'll live with it. So we're all done. With just a little bit of electrical knowledge and ability there to work with those wires and a couple of calls to the dealer, I was able to replace that Power Genius with the Ecco pack, and everything is operational. So the last thing I need to do now is get my shorts and hit the hot tub. So till next time, folks, keep your hot tubs at 11.